In the gentle mist of a 14th century morning, when the world breathes with the quiet rhythm of countless dawns before, imagine yourself stepping into the stone dairy of Brother Marcus at the monastery of Saint Benedict. The air carries the sweet, warm scent of fresh milk and ancient wisdom, where every surface tells stories of hands that knew secrets you will never learn, no matter how many YouTube tutorials you watch or how many modern cheese-making kits you purchase. Brother Marcus moves through his dairy with the fluid grace of someone whose knowledge flows not from books or instruction manuals, but from 1,000 mornings of listening to milk speak its quiet language. His weathered hands, mapped with the geography of 40 years spent in service to this ancient craft, can read the subtle differences in milk that would be invisible to your modern eyes, trained as they are to expect consistency, predictability, and the safety net of scientific understanding. You would stand in this medieval dairy, surrounded by wooden vats and stone surfaces worn smooth by generations of use, and you would be lost. The milk before you looks like milk, smells like milk, but to Brother Marcus it carries messages as complex as a symphony. He knows without thinking that this morning's milk came from Brunhilde, the brown cow in the third stall, who calved 6 weeks ago and whose milk has reached the perfect balance of sweetness and richness that will yield the finest cheese. Siegt's temperature in the dairy hovers at exactly 52 degrees, maintained not by thermostats or refrigeration, but by the careful positioning of the building itself. The thick stone walls face north, away from the sun's warming touch, while small windows placed with mathematical precision allow just enough airflow to keep the space cool without creating drafts that would disturb the delicate process of transformation. That turns simple milk into treasure. Brother Marcus tastes the milk with a small wooden spoon, rolling it across his palate with the concentration of a wine master. His taste buds, refined through decades of practice, detect the subtle notes that tell him everything he needs to know. The cow grazed yesterday on the new spring grass that grows near the stream, where wild herbs add their essence to her milk. The acidity level sits perfectly balanced, neither too sweet nor too sharp, ready for the alchemy that will transform it into cheese. You would taste this same milk and think it tastes like milk. Pleasant enough, certainly fresh, but beyond that your modern palate, accustomed to standardized, pasteurized dairy products, would miss the hundreds of subtle flavors and characteristics that Brother Marcus reads like a familiar book. You have been trained to expect uniformity, while he has learned to work with infinite variety. The wooden vats that will hold today's cheese making stand ready, their surfaces seasoned by years of use and darkened to the color of autumn leaves. Each vat has its own personality, its own tendency to hold heat or release it, its own subtle influence on the cheese that forms within its embrace. Brother Marcus knows each vessel intimately, the way a musician knows the voice of their instrument, understanding exactly how each will shape the final product. Your modern mind would cry out for measurements, for standardized equipment, for the comfort of precise temperatures and exact timing. You would want to know the pH levels, the exact fat content of the milk, the ambient humidity reading. But Brother Marcus works with a different kind of precision, one that comes from deep relationship rather than scientific measurement, from intuition honed through countless repetitions rather than data-driven analysis. The monastery bells ring the hour of prime, their bronze voices carrying across the valley to mark the rhythm of monastic life. This sound signals to Brother Marcus that the morning milk is ready, not because the clock says so, but because the bells mark the perfect interval between milking and cheese making, a timing established through generations of careful observation and refined through centuries of practice. In this moment, As dawn light filters through the small windows of the dairy and illuminates the wooden vats waiting for their daily transformation, you would feel the overwhelming weight of knowledge you do not possess. The simplicity of the scene, milk, vats, stone surfaces, would belie the incredible complexity of understanding required to transform these basic elements into the aged cheeses that grace medieval tables and sustain monastic communities through long winters. Brother Marcus begins his work with a prayer, acknowledging the sacred nature of transformation, the miracle of turning the gift of milk into food that will nourish and sustain. His reverence extends beyond mere religious observance to encompass a deep understanding that cheese making is an act of partnership with forces beyond human control. The rhythm of seasons, the behavior of invisible microorganisms, the ancient wisdom embedded in traditional methods. The morning light grows stronger, casting long shadows across the dairy floor as Brother Marcus prepares for another day of the ancient dance between human skill and natural process. His movements carry the confidence of someone who has learned to work with uncertainty, to trust in methods that have sustained communities for generations, to find precision within variability rather than despite it. You would watch him work and understand, perhaps for the first time, that the convenience of modern life has cost you something precious, the ability to read the subtle languages that our ancestors spoke fluently, the patience to work within natural rhythms rather than imposing artificial ones, the humility to recognize that some knowledge cannot be hurried or simplified, but must be earned through years of patient observation and practice. In this gentle morning light, surrounded by the tools and spaces that have shaped cheesemaking for centuries, you would begin to glimpse the vast distance between knowing how to follow instructions and understanding the deeper rhythms that guide true craftsmanship. The dairy holds its ancient secrets close, revealing them only to those who approach with the patience of stones, the attention of lovers, and the willingness to spend decades learning what cannot be taught, but only discovered through the slow accumulation of experience. The morning sun climbs higher as Brother Marcus dips his bare hand into the wooden vat of fresh milk, his weathered fingers becoming instruments more sensitive than any modern thermometer. His skin calibrated through 40 years of daily contact. With milk at every stage of its transformation, reads the temperature with an accuracy that would astound you. Where you would guess wildly or reach for a digital thermometer, his hand tells him precisely 68 degrees, perfect for beginning the gentle warming that cheese demands. This is knowledge that lives in the flesh, written in nerve endings and muscle memory, impossible to download or quickly acquire. Brother Marcus learned this touch through countless mornings of success and failure, through batches that curdled too quickly and others that never set at all, through seasons when everything went wrong and he had to learn to read the subtle signs that distinguish good milk from problematic milk, ready milk from milk that needs more time. You would place your hand in this same milk and feel warmth, coolness, wetness. Your urban fingers, accustomed to keyboards and smartphones, air conditioning and central heating, would have no vocabulary for the subtle differences that Brother Marcus perceives as clearly as you might distinguish. Between colors, his hand reads the milk's readiness the way your eyes read text, automatically and without conscious effort. The milk itself tells stories that you cannot hear. To Brother Marcus, this morning's offering carries the signature of each cow that contributed to the collective bounty. He knows that Matilda, the spotted cow with the gentle temperament, produces milk with a higher fat content that will create cheese with a richer texture. Gertrude, the black cow who prefers the shade of the oak tree, gives milk with a slightly grassy flavor that adds complexity to the final product. Your modern experience with milk comes from standardized, homogenized products designed to eliminate exactly the variations that Brother Marcus treasures. You have been trained to expect consistency, to view variation as a problem to be solved rather than a gift to be celebrated. In your world, milk is milk, measured in percentages of fat content and expiration dates, stripped of the individual character that makes each day's cheese-making a unique adventure. Brother Marcus begins the gentle heating process using methods that would frustrate your efficiency-obsessed modern mind beyond measure. No direct flame touches the milk. Instead, he places heated stones, warmed by the kitchen fire and wrapped in clean cloth, into a second vat filled with warm water. The milk vat sits within this water bath, receiving heat so gentle and gradual that the temperature rises slowly, naturally without shocking the delicate proteins that must remain intact for proper cheese formation. This indirect heating method, developed through centuries of patient experimentation, ensures that the milk warms evenly and gently, preserving the complex bacterial cultures that will transform it into cheese. But the process requires constant attention, frequent testing, with hand and spoon, adjustments based on subtle cues that you would never notice. The rate of heating must match the day's humidity, the season's temperature, the particular characteristics of this batch of milk. You would fidget during this process, checking your phone, wondering why medieval people didn't simply use a stovetop or microwave to speed things along. Your impatience would grow as Brother Marcus spends what seems like hours achieving a temperature change that modern equipment could accomplish in minutes. But this apparent inefficiency serves purposes you cannot yet understand. The slow heating allows the milk's natural bacteria to activate gradually, creating the foundation for complex flavors that develop during aging. As the milk warms, Brother Marcus stirs it with a wooden paddle worn smooth by generations of use. His stirring follows patterns passed down through monastery tradition, creating currents that distribute heat evenly while awakening the sleeping potential within the milk. The motion is meditative, rhythmic, timed to the monk's breathing, and synchronized with the natural processes occurring within the warming milk. Your stirring would be random, impatient, focused on achieving results rather than participating in the process. You would stir too fast, creating turbulence that disturbs the milk's natural structure, or too slow, allowing hot spots to develop that would damage the proteins essential for cheese formation. The paddle would feel awkward in your hands, unfamiliar in its weight and balance, lacking the comfortable extension of self that it represents to Brother Marcus. The warming process reveals other secrets that your modern senses cannot detect. Brother Marcus watches for the moment when the milk's surface develops a barely visible sheen, a sign that the proteins are beginning to denature and prepare for coagulation. He listens for the subtle change in sound as his paddle moves through. The warming milk, the slight thickening that indicates readiness for the next phase of transformation. These signs would be invisible and inaudible to you, lost in the general appearance and sound of warming milk. Your eyes, trained to read screens and artificial displays, lack the sensitivity to perceive the natural indicators that guide traditional cheese making. Your ears, accustomed to electronic sounds and urban noise, cannot distinguish the whisper-quiet differences that tell an experienced cheesemaker exactly when to proceed to the next step. The monastery bells ring again, marking the passage of time in rhythms older than mechanical clocks. Brother Marcus glances toward the window, noting the angle of the sun, the direction of the wind, the color of the sky. All these factors influence his decisions about timing and temperature, creating a complex calculus that balances natural forces with human intention. Weather affects cheese making in ways that would surprise and confuse you. Humidity influences how quickly milk coagulates. Barometric pressure affects bacterial activity. temperature swings change the behavior of aging cheese. Brother Marcus has learned to read these atmospheric conditions as carefully as he reads the milk itself, adjusting his methods to work with rather than against the natural environment. Your weather comes filtered through apps and air conditioning, climate control, and sealed buildings. You have lost touch with the subtle atmospheric changes that your ancestors navigated daily, the natural rhythms that influenced every aspect of food production and preservation. In your controlled environment, you would struggle to understand how outdoor conditions could possibly affect what happens in an indoor dairy. As the morning progresses and the milk reaches the perfect temperature for adding rennet, Brother Marcus prepares for the most critical moment in cheese making. His hands, now warm from contact with the heated milk, carry the accumulated knowledge of countless successful batches and the hard-won wisdom of learning from failures. These hands will guide the transformation of liquid into solid, of simple milk into complex cheese through methods that you could observe but never truly replicate without years of patient apprenticeship. In the gentle warmth of the monastery dairy, surrounded by stone walls that have witnessed this same ritual for centuries, you would begin to understand that cheese making is not simply a matter of following recipes or applying techniques. It is an intimate conversation between human skill and natural forces, conducted in a language of touch and timing, intuition and experience that cannot be translated into the quick tutorials and instant gratification that define your modern relationship with learning. The calendar on your phone marks September 15th as just another Tuesday, but Brother Marcus reads this date as the beginning of the cheese-making season's most crucial chapter. The autumn milk, thick with the richness of cows that have spent months grazing on sweet grasses and wild herbs, carries within its creamy depths the potential for the monastery's finest cheeses. Yet this richness that medieval cheesemakers treasured would overwhelm your modern understanding, trained as you are to expect the standardized consistency of industrial dairy production. September's milk tells stories of the summer that shaped it. The cows have fed on grass, kissed by morning dew and warmed by afternoon sun, on meadow flowers that bloom only in high summer, on herbs that grow wild along stream banks where the monastery cattle drink. Each mouthful of vegetation becomes part of the milk's complex flavor profile, creating the terroir that makes autumn cheese distinctly different from the lighter, grassier cheese of spring or the concentrated essence of winter milk. You would taste this seasonal milk and notice that it seems richer, perhaps, than the uniform product you buy from grocery store shelves. But Brother Marcus tastes the entire summer in this morning's offering. The 3 weeks of gentle rain in July that encouraged clover growth, the hot spell in August that concentrated sugars in the grass, the cool nights of early September that have begun to change the pasture's character as plants prepare for winter dormancy. This seasonal awareness shapes every decision Brother Marcus makes about today's cheese. September milk requires different timing than spring milk, different temperatures than summer milk, different aging conditions than winter milk. The knowledge of how to adjust for these seasonal variations cannot be found in any recipe book because it depends on understanding relationships too complex and variable to reduce to simple instructions. Your modern life insulates you from seasonal variation in ways that would make medieval cheese making impossible. You eat strawberries in December and tomatoes in February, drink the same standardized milk year-round, live in climate-controlled environments that eliminate the natural rhythms that shaped all traditional food production. Your cheese comes from factories that smooth out seasonal differences, creating products as consistent as possible regardless of when they were made. Brother Marcus examines the milk with the attention of someone reading a beloved but complex text. The color tells him about the carotene levels that fluctuate with the changing grass. The aroma carries hints of the wild thyme that grows in the monastery's upper pastures. now at its peak potency as the plant prepares for winter. The texture, slightly thicker than summer milk, indicates the increased fat content that will create cheese with the rich, complex flavors that improve with aging. These are distinctions that your modern palate, educated by processed foods and artificial flavors, cannot perceive. You have learned to associate quality with consistency, to prefer products that taste the same every time, rather than celebrating the infinite variations that natural processes create. Your tongue, trained on foods designed to taste identical regardless of season or origin, lacks the vocabulary to read the subtle seasonal signatures that guide traditional cheese making. The monastery's cheese-making schedule follows rhythms established over centuries of careful observation. September begins the season of serious cheese production because autumn milk, with its higher fat content and richer flavor compounds, creates cheese that will age beautifully through the winter months. Spring cheese, made from lighter milk, serves immediate consumption. Summer cheese, affected by heat and the cow's changed diet, requires different techniques entirely. This seasonal calendar would confuse and frustrate your modern approach to food production. You are accustomed to making what you want when you want it, regardless of natural timing. The idea that certain foods can only be made at certain times of year, that quality depends on working with natural rhythms rather than imposing artificial schedules, runs counter to everything your consumer culture has taught you about convenience and control. Brother Marcus knows that today's cheese will not reach its peak until next spring, when the slow transformation of aging has developed the complex flavors that only time can create. He works with a patience that your instant gratification world has not taught you, investing months of careful attention in products that may not be ready for consumption until the seasons have turned full circle. The timing of seasonal cheese making connects to cycles larger than individual preference or market demand. September cheese will sustain the monastery through Lent, when fresh foods are scarce and preserved foods become essential for survival. The monks' decisions about which cheeses to make depend not only on the quality of available milk, but also on understanding the community's needs months in advance. You live in a world where food is always available, where scarcity is rare, and seasonal eating is a lifestyle choice rather than a survival necessity. This abundance, wonderful as it is, has disconnected you from the forward thinking that sustained medieval communities. Brother Marcus must consider not only today's cheese but also February's meals, not only this month's production but also next spring's needs. The bacterial cultures that transform milk into cheese also follow seasonal patterns that you would never suspect. The natural yeasts and bacteria present in autumn milk differ from those active in spring, influenced by temperature, humidity, and the changing microbial environment of pastures and dairy spaces. Brother Marcus works with these seasonal variations, understanding that each time of year produces cheese with its own characteristic bacterial signature. Your modern cheese making would rely on standardized starter cultures purchased from supply companies designed to produce consistent results. Regardless of season or location, you would miss entirely the subtle variations that seasonal bacteria create, the unique characteristics that make autumn cheese different from spring cheese, even when made with identical techniques and equipment. As the morning progresses toward the critical moment of adding rennet, Brother Marcus embodies the deep seasonal awareness that guided all traditional food production. His knowledge encompasses not only the immediate task of cheese making, but also the larger rhythms of agricultural life, the cycles of plenty and scarcity that shaped every decision about food production and preservation. In the gentle autumn, light filtering through the dairy windows, surrounded by the tools and traditions that connect his work to centuries of seasonal cheese making, Brother Marcus represents a way of understanding time and food that your modern life has largely abandoned. His patience with seasonal rhythms, his willingness to work within natural limitations rather than against them, his acceptance that some things cannot be rushed or standardized, all these qualities would be necessary for successful medieval cheese making, and all would challenge your modern assumptions about efficiency, control, and the relationship between human desire and natural possibility. The secret language of seasons speaks in flavors and textures, in timing and patience, in the understanding that the best things come not from fighting natural rhythms but from learning to dance with them in harmony. In the shadowed corner of the monastery's preparation chamber, Brother Marcus approaches a task that would horrify your modern sensibilities and challenge your carefully cultivated distance from the realities of food production. He unwraps a bundle containing the stomach of a young calf, its pale, translucent surface still bearing the memory of its original purpose. This humble organ, which you would view with disgust and rush to discard, represents to the medieval cheese maker one of the most precious and essential tools of his trade. The preparation of rennet from calf stomach requires intimate knowledge of anatomy, chemistry, and preservation that your sanitized modern world has rendered nearly incomprehensible. Brother Marcus handles the stomach with the reverence of someone who understands that this delicate membrane contains the enzymes essential for transforming liquid milk into solid cheese. His weathered hands work with practiced precision, turning what you would see as waste into the catalyst for culinary transformation. You would recoil from this process, your modern mind conditioned to expect clean, packaged products with minimal connection to their biological origins. The idea of reaching into a calf's stomach, of working with raw animal organs, of handling materials that still carry the scent and texture of their living source would overwhelm your carefully maintained boundaries between food and its origins. Brother Marcus begins by carefully cleaning the stomach, removing any remaining contents while preserving the delicate lining where the precious enzymes reside. His movements are deliberate and respectful, understanding that this organ represents not only a tool, but also a sacrifice, the young calf's contribution to the monastery's sustenance. Each stomach will provide enough rennet for several batches of cheese, making it a resource too valuable to waste through careless handling. The knowledge required to properly prepare rennet represents generations of accumulated wisdom about preservation, chemistry, and timing. The stomach must be processed while fresh, but then preserved in salt to maintain the enzyme activity that makes cheese coagulation possible. Too much salt and the enzymes become inactive. Too little and the stomach spoils before the enzymes can be extracted. Your modern cheese making relies on standardized rennet tablets or liquid purchased from supply companies, products so refined and processed that their animal origins become invisible. You add these industrial products without thought, measuring them like any other ingredient, unaware of the complex biological processes that their creation requires. The disconnect between modern convenience and traditional knowledge would leave you helpless in a medieval dairy. Brother Marcus cuts the cleaned stomach into strips, each piece carefully sized to provide the correct amount of enzyme activity for a single batch of cheese. This calculation requires understanding not only the stomach's potency, but also the characteristics of today's milk, the ambient temperature of the dairy, and the type of cheese being produced. Each variable influences how much rennet to use and how long to allow for coagulation. The monastery's rennet preparation follows methods refined through centuries of trial and error, techniques passed down through oral tradition and hands-on apprenticeship. Brother Marcus learned these skills not from written instructions, but from Brother Benedict, who learned from Brother Thomas before him, in an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back to the monastery's founding generations ago. You would struggle with this absence of written recipes, your modern learning style dependent on detailed instructions and precise measurements. The medieval approach to rennet preparation relies on sensory cues and accumulated experience rather than standardized procedures. Brother Marcus judges the stomach's readiness by touch and smell, by the color of the liquid it produces when soaked, by subtle signs that he has learned to read through decades of daily practice. The prepared rennet must be stored carefully to maintain its potency through the cheese-making season. Brother Marcus places the salted stomach pieces in clean pottery jars, covering them with additional salt and sealing them with wax to prevent contamination. These jars, stored in the cool darkness of the monastery's cellar, represent the dairy's insurance against hunger, the preserved potential for months of cheese production. Your modern understanding of food preservation relies on refrigeration, chemical preservatives, and packaging technologies that eliminate the careful balance of natural preservation methods. The idea that biological materials could be preserved through salt alone, without artificial additives or controlled atmospheres, would seem impossibly risky to your safety-conscious modern mind. When the time comes to use the rennet, Brother Marcus selects a piece of preserved stomach and soaks it in warm water, gently extracting the enzymes that will coagulate today's milk. This extraction process requires patience and skill, understanding exactly how long to soak the stomach, how warm the water should be, how to judge when the rennet liquid has reached optimal strength. The process of adding rennet to milk represents one of the most critical moments in cheese making, requiring judgment that cannot be reduced to simple recipes or standardized procedures. Brother Marcus adds the rennet liquid drop by drop, stirring gently while watching for the subtle signs that indicate successful coagulation. Too much rennet and the curds form too quickly, creating a tough, rubbery texture. Too little, and the milk never properly coagulates, resulting in complete failure. You would approach this moment with anxiety, your modern mindset demanding precise measurements and guaranteed results. The medieval cheesemaker's willingness to work with uncertainty, to make critical decisions based on sensory observation rather than scientific measurement, would challenge your fundamental assumptions about how complex processes should be controlled and managed. The transformation that occurs when rennet meets warm milk represents a kind of magic that would amaze and mystify you. Within minutes, the liquid milk begins to thicken and separate, curds forming as proteins coagulate and whey separates out. This ancient alchemy, accomplished without modern understanding of enzyme chemistry or protein structures, produces results as reliable as any modern industrial process. Brother Marcus watches this transformation with the satisfaction of someone who has witnessed countless successful coagulations while never losing his sense of wonder at the process. His eyes, trained through years of observation, read the forming curds like text, understanding from their appearance and behavior exactly how the finished cheese will develop. In the quiet of the monastery dairy, surrounded by the scents of warm milk and ancient stone, you would begin to understand the vast distance between modern convenience and traditional knowledge. The simple act of transforming a calf's stomach into the catalyst for cheese-making represents skills and understanding that your modern world has largely abandoned, replaced by industrial processes that achieve the same results while disconnecting you from the biological realities that make cheese possible. The sacred nature of this transformation, the reverent handling of animal organs, the patient preservation of biological materials, all these aspects of traditional rennet preparation would challenge your modern sensibilities while revealing the deep knowledge and careful stewardship that sustained medieval communities through their mastery of natural processes. The curds form slowly in the warming milk, tiny white islands appearing and growing larger as Brother Marcus watches with the infinite patience of someone who has learned that the finest things cannot be rushed. Your modern mind, accustomed to instant results and immediate gratification, would fidget during this process, checking clocks and wondering why medieval people didn't develop faster methods for what seems like such a simple transformation. But Brother Marcus knows that hurrying this process destroys everything that makes good cheese possible. The curds must form at their own pace, influenced by the temperature of the milk, the strength of the rennet, the humidity of the air, the mysterious bacterial cultures that exist in every batch of milk. His role is not to control, but to guide, not to force, but to facilitate the natural processes that transform milk into something far more complex and nourishing. The monastery bells ring, none marking the midpoint of the day, and Brother Marcus notes with satisfaction that the curds are forming exactly as they should for this time of year, this quality of milk, this particular batch of rennet. His internal clock, calibrated to the rhythms of monastic life and seasonal change, tells him that the timing is perfect, even though he has consulted no watch, followed no written schedule, adhered to no standardized procedure. You would find this intuitive timing mystifying and unreliable. Your world operates on precise schedules and measured intervals, digital displays and alarm notifications. The idea that someone could judge the perfect moment for the next step in cheese making simply by feeling the passage of time, by noting the angle of sunlight through the dairy window, by listening to the quality of silence that indicates proper curd formation, would seem impossibly vague and unscientific. Brother Marcus tests the curds with a gentle touch, his finger breaking the surface to assess the texture and firmness that indicate readiness for cutting. The curds should be firm enough to hold their shape when cut, but still tender enough to release whey cleanly. This perfect moment exists for only a brief window of time, and missing it means starting over with fresh milk and accepting the loss of a day's production. Your modern cheese-making would rely on thermometers and timers, pH strips and scientific instruments designed to remove guesswork from the process. You would measure and calculate, follow detailed instructions, and trust in data rather than developing the sensory skills that allow traditional cheesemakers to work successfully with natural variation and uncertainty. The cutting of curds requires a skill that you could observe but never quickly master. Brother Marcus uses a long knife with a blade worn thin by decades of use, cutting through the coagulated milk in a pattern that maximizes whey separation while preserving curd integrity. His cuts are confident and precise, creating uniform pieces that will drain evenly and age consistently. You would struggle with this cutting process, your inexperienced hands creating uneven pieces that would drain poorly and age unpredictably. The knife would feel awkward and unfamiliar, lacking the comfortable extension of self that it represents to Brother Marcus. Your cuts would be hesitant and irregular, destroying the delicate structure that proper curd formation creates. As the cut curds begin to separate and release their whey, Brother Marcus gently heats the mixture, slowly raising the temperature, to encourage further moisture release while being careful not to cook the delicate proteins that give cheese its texture and flavor. This heating process requires constant attention and adjustment, responding to visual cues and temperature changes that you would not notice or understand. The whey that separates from the curds carries its own value in the medieval economy. Nothing is wasted in this world of scarcity and careful resource management. The protein-rich whey will feed the monastery's pigs, providing nutrition that supports the entire cycle of food production that sustains the religious community. You, accustomed to viewing byproducts as waste to be discarded, would miss entirely the integrated thinking that makes medieval food production sustainable and efficient. Brother Marcus stirs the heating curds with slow, deliberate movements, understanding that agitation affects the final texture of the cheese. Too much stirring and the curds break apart, creating a grainy texture in the finished product. Too little and they don't heat evenly, leading to inconsistent moisture content and poor aging characteristics. The rhythm of his stirring follows patterns learned through apprenticeship. and refined through practice. This stage of cheese making tests patience in ways that your modern lifestyle has not prepared you for. The heating and stirring process takes hours, requiring constant attention and frequent small adjustments based on subtle changes in appearance, texture, and behavior of the curds. You would grow restless, distracted, eager to move on to something that feels more productive than standing over a vat of slowly changing milk. The monastery provides the perfect environment for this patient work. The stone walls maintain steady temperatures, the northern exposure prevents dramatic temperature swings, and the rhythm of monastic life creates natural intervals for checking and adjusting the cheese-making process. Brother Marcus coordinates his work with the canonical hours, using the structure of prayer times to pace the long, slow transformation of milk into cheese. Your modern environment works against the patience that traditional cheese-making requires. Constant notifications demand immediate attention, multiple tasks compete for your focus, and the pressure to maximize efficiency conflicts with the slow, contemplative approach that good cheese demands. You would struggle to maintain the sustained attention that Brother Marcus applies naturally to his work. As afternoon light filters through the dairy windows, the curds reach the perfect temperature and texture for draining. Brother Marcus tests them with his practiced touch, feeling for the slight firmness that indicates readiness for the next phase. His fingers, calibrated through decades of daily cheese making, detect differences in texture that would be invisible to your inexperienced touch. The draining process represents another test of patience and skill. Brother Marcus lines wooden forms with clean cloth, carefully ladling the curds into molds that will shape tomorrow's cheese. Each movement is deliberate and practiced, ensuring even distribution while being gentle enough to preserve the delicate curd structure that proper drainage requires. You would rush this process, eager to see results and impatient with the careful technique that proper curd handling demands. Your hurried movements would compact the curds unevenly, creating dense spots in the finished cheese and preventing proper aging. The wooden forms would feel clumsy in your hands, unfamiliar tools that require skill and experience to use effectively. Evening approaches and the day's cheese-making nears completion. Brother Marcus reflects on the countless variables that influence today's success. The weather, the quality of the milk, the strength of the rennet, the timing of each step. All these factors combine to create conditions for good cheese, but only because his knowledge and experience allowed him to work skillfully with uncertainty and variation. In the gentle light of late afternoon, surrounded by the tools and traditions that have shaped cheese-making for centuries, you would begin to understand that patience is not simply a virtue in medieval cheese-making, but an essential skill. The willingness to work with natural rhythms rather than against them, to invest time and attention in processes that cannot be hurried, to find satisfaction in slow transformation rather than immediate results. These qualities, foreign to your modern experience, form the foundation of all traditional food crafts and the wisdom that sustained communities long before the convenience and speed of modern technology changed our relationship with time, patience, and the natural world. Let yourself rest now in this gentle rhythm of ancient work, where time moves slowly and patience creates treasures that cannot be rushed, where the wisdom of generations guides hands that understand the sacred art of transformation. One careful moment at a time, like the peaceful turning of seasons that brings all things to ripeness in their proper time. Within the hallowed corridors of the Abbey of St. Benedict, where candlelight flickers against stone walls that have witnessed centuries of devotion and daily labor, the deepest secrets of cheese-making pass not through written instruction, but through whispered conversations between master and apprentice, elder and novice, in a tradition as sacred as the prayers that mark each hour of monastic life. Brother Marcus moves through these ancient halls, carrying knowledge that no modern cheese-making course could ever convey, understanding earned through 20 years of apprenticeship under Brother Benedict, who learned from Brother Thomas before him, in an unbroken chain of wisdom stretching back to the monastery's founding generations ago. This knowledge lives not in books or manuals, but in the shared memory of the community, preserved through demonstration and careful observation, through mistakes corrected and successes celebrated. You would struggle in this world without written instructions, your modern learning style dependent on detailed recipes and precise measurements, step-by-step photographs and video tutorials. The monastic tradition of knowledge transmission relies on relationships and patience, on years of working beside experienced masters who share their understanding gradually, revealing deeper secrets only when students demonstrate readiness for more complex responsibilities. The monastery's cheese-making traditions evolved through generations of careful experimentation within the constraints of religious life. The rhythms of prayer and work, the seasonal cycles of fasting and feast, the community's need for nutritious food that could sustain them through long winters, all these factors shaped the development of techniques that served both practical and spiritual purposes. Brother Marcus learned not only how to make cheese, but why each step mattered, how the monastery's methods connected to larger principles of stewardship and sustainability. The knowledge he carries encompasses understanding of the abbey's cattle, the management of pastures, the preservation of milk cultures, the aging of cheese in natural caves that maintain perfect temperature and humidity through divine providence, and careful human tending. Your modern approach to learning would miss entirely the integrated wisdom that monastic cheese-making represents. You would focus on isolated techniques rather than understanding how cheese-making fits into the larger cycle of agricultural work, community life, and spiritual practice that gives meaning to every aspect of monastery existence. The abbey's cheese cellars, carved into the hillside beneath the main buildings, represent engineering knowledge accumulated over centuries of trial and error. These underground chambers maintain constant temperatures through careful positioning relative to the hillside's natural thermal properties, while stone-lined drainage channels prevent moisture problems that could ruin months of careful work. Brother Marcus enters these cellars with the reverence of someone approaching sacred space. The air carries the complex sense of aging cheese, earthy and rich with the promise of flavors developing in the darkness. Wooden shelves line the walls, each level carefully positioned to take advantage of subtle temperature variations that affect how different types of cheese mature. You would see these cellars as primitive storage space, lacking the controlled environment and scientific monitoring that modern cheese aging requires. The absence of thermostats and humidity gauges, the reliance on natural air circulation and seasonal temperature variation would seem impossibly unreliable to your safety-conscious modern mindset. Yet these natural conditions create environments that produce cheeses with complexity and character that controlled modern facilities struggle to match. The monastery's aging methods rely on understanding relationships between cheese types and storage locations that took generations to discover and refine. Brother Marcus knows exactly which shelves suit young cheeses that need gentle aging, which areas develop the beneficial molds that create complex flavors, which spots remain coolest during summer heat, and which maintain optimal humidity during winter's dry months. This spatial knowledge cannot be taught through books or charts, but must be learned through years of daily observation, noting how cheeses develop differently in various locations, understanding the subtle microclimates that exist within the cellar's stone embrace. Brother Marcus reads these underground spaces like a familiar text, seeing possibilities and potential problems that would be invisible to your inexperienced eyes. The monastery's cheese recipes exist only in the collective, Memory of the community preserved through oral tradition and handed down through practical demonstration. Each brother learns not just what to do but why, understanding the principles that allow adaptation when circumstances change. This flexible knowledge enables success even when milk quality varies, when weather affects aging conditions, when seasonal changes require modifications to traditional methods. Your modern recipe-dependent approach would fail catastrophically in this environment of constant variation and adaptation. The monastic tradition prepares its practitioners for uncertainty, teaching principles rather than rigid procedures, developing judgment rather than mere technical skill. Brother Marcus can succeed with unfamiliar milk, unusual weather, or aging challenges because his knowledge runs deep enough to adapt to changing conditions. The community's knowledge extends beyond individual expertise to encompass collective wisdom about cheese making as part of larger agricultural and spiritual cycles. The brothers understand how cheese production connects to cattle management, how aging schedules coordinate with religious festivals, how surplus production provides resources for hospitality and charity that express their spiritual values. Brother Marcus carries responsibility not only for today's cheese, but for preserving knowledge that will serve future generations of monastics. He teaches younger brothers with patience and attention, understanding that the community's survival depends on successful transmission of accumulated wisdom. His role as knowledge keeper carries spiritual weight equal to his practical responsibilities. The monastery's approach to innovation proceeds slowly and carefully, testing modifications over multiple seasons before adopting changes that affect traditional methods. New techniques must prove themselves through extended trial periods, demonstrating not only technical success but compatibility with the community's spiritual life and agricultural cycles. You would struggle with this conservative approach to change your modern mind accustomed to rapid innovation and constant improvement. The monastic tradition values stability and reliability over novelty, understanding that traditional methods have proven themselves through centuries of use, while innovations may create problems that appear only after months or years of application. The Abbey's cheese-making serves purposes beyond mere food production, creating products that can be traded for goods the monastery cannot produce internally. The reputation of the Abbey's cheese brings visitors and pilgrims, spreading the community's influence while providing resources for maintaining the monastery's spiritual and physical infrastructure. Brother Marcus understands his work as part of this larger mission, seeing cheese-making not as isolated craft, but as service to the community and expression of spiritual values. The quality of his cheese reflects on the monastery's spiritual life, while success in cheese-making enables the community to fulfill its obligations to hospitality and charity. The bells ring vespers as Brother Marcus completes his daily round of the aging cheeses, checking each wheel for signs of proper development or potential problems. His observations become part of the ongoing knowledge that guides future decisions about aging conditions, seasonal adjustments, and quality control that maintains the monastery's reputation for excellence. In the gathering twilight, as shadows lengthen in the ancient cellars and the day's work draws toward completion, the monastery's cheese-making tradition represents something more precious than mere technical knowledge. It embodies wisdom about community, continuity, and the patient cultivation of excellence that serves purposes larger than individual achievement. Brother Marcus ascends from the cellars carrying not only satisfaction with today's work, but also awareness of his place in the long chain of knowledge keepers who have preserved and transmitted the wisdom that sustains monastic life. His understanding connects him to past masters and future students, to the living tradition that makes cheese-making a form of prayer, a practice of stewardship, and a means of serving the community's spiritual and material needs. The monastery walls hold these whispered secrets close, revealing them only to those who approach with patience, humility, and willingness to learn not just techniques, but the deeper wisdom that transforms craft into calling, work into worship, and simple cheese making into participation in the eternal rhythms that sustain both body and spirit through the patient practice of ancient arts preserved in communities where knowledge flows not through books but through the living relationship between master and student, elder and novice, in the sacred trust of wisdom passed from hand to hand, heart to heart, across the centuries. The morning mist clings to the monastery valleys as Brother Marcus steps outside the dairy, his weathered face turned toward the sky with the attention of someone who has learned to read atmospheric messages that escape your modern, climate-controlled awareness. The weight of the air against his skin, the direction of the morning breeze, the particular quality of light filtering through cloud cover, all these signals influence his decisions about today's cheese making in ways that would mystify your technologically dependent modern mind. You live in a world where weather exists as information displayed on digital screens, predictions delivered through smartphone apps, conditions filtered through air conditioning and central heating that maintain artificial consistency regardless of nature's daily drama. Your food comes from systems designed to eliminate weather's influence, creating products as uniform as possible, whether made during drought or flood, heat wave, or cold snap. Brother Marcus inhabits a different reality, where weather penetrates every aspect of food production, where atmospheric pressure affects how milk coagulates, where humidity influences how quickly cheese ages, where temperature swings change the behavior of the invisible microorganisms that transform simple milk into complex, flavorful treasure. His knowledge encompasses understanding these relationships in ways that modern industrial cheese making works hard to eliminate. This morning's particular combination of dropping barometric pressure and rising humidity tells Brother Marcus that today's milk will coagulate more slowly than yesterday's, requiring adjustments to rennet timing and curd cutting that you would never think to make. Your modern cheese making assumes consistent conditions, following standardized procedures regardless of atmospheric variations that medieval craftsmen learned to read like text. The monastery's cattle, grazing in pastures exposed to the same weather that affects the dairy, contribute their own weather-influenced characteristics to today's milk. Cool, misty mornings encourage the cows to graze longer on grass heavy with dew, concentrating flavors and affecting the milk's fat content in subtle ways that Brother Marcus detects through taste and texture rather than laboratory analysis. You would miss these weather-influenced variations entirely, your palate trained on milk, processed to eliminate exactly the natural variations that traditional cheese makers treasured. The standardization that makes modern milk convenient removes the seasonal and daily fluctuations that gave medieval cheese its character and complexity, creating products optimized for consistency rather than celebrating natural diversity. Brother Marcus studies the wind direction, noting that today's breeze comes from the southwest, carrying moisture from distant valleys that will increase the dairy's humidity throughout the morning. This atmospheric moisture affects how quickly whey separates from curds, how rapidly cheese surfaces dry during early aging, how successfully beneficial molds establish themselves on aging wheels. These microclimatic considerations would overwhelm your modern approach to cheese making, accustomed as you are to controlled environments that eliminate weather's influence through technological intervention. The idea that successful cheese making requires daily attention to atmospheric conditions, constant adjustment based on weather patterns, flexible response to environmental changes, conflicts with your preference for predictable, repeatable processes. The monastery's cheese cellars, carved into hillsides that respond slowly to surface weather changes, provide natural climate control that Brother Marcus has learned to read and work with rather than against. He knows which areas of the cellar will be affected by today's humidity, which aging cheeses need attention, when barometric pressure drops, which wheels benefit from atmospheric changes that would damage others. Your modern cheese aging relies on mechanical climate control designed to maintain constant temperature and humidity regardless of external conditions. This artificial consistency produces reliable results, but eliminates the subtle seasonal variations that give traditionally aged cheese its complexity and character. You would struggle to work with natural climate variation, lacking the knowledge to distinguish beneficial changes from problematic ones. Brother Marcus observes the particular quality of today's light, noting how morning sun filtered through mist creates conditions that affect bacterial activity in milk and cheese. The subtle variations in natural light influence the behavior of microorganisms in ways that fluorescent bulbs and LED lighting cannot replicate, creating daily differences in fermentation rates and flavor development. These light-influenced changes would be invisible to your modern understanding, accustomed as you are to artificial illumination that eliminates natural variation. The monastery's dependence on candles and sunlight creates conditions that change throughout each day and season, requiring cheesemakers to adapt their timing and techniques to work with rather than against these natural rhythms. The scent carried on this morning's breeze brings information that Brother Marcus reads like a weather report written in aromatic language. The smell of rain approaching from distant mountains tells him that humidity will continue rising, affecting how today's cheese surfaces develop. The absence of certain floral scents indicates that some pasture plants have finished blooming, changing the flavor profile of the milk they will influence. Your modern nose, accustomed to artificial fragrances and filtered air, lacks the sensitivity to read these natural atmospheric messages. The monastery's environment, free from chemical pollutants and artificial scents, allows development of olfactory skills that urban living makes impossible. Brother Marcus breathes deeply of air that carries information you cannot perceive or interpret. The monastery bells ring terse as Brother Marcus completes his weather assessment and returns to the dairy, his observations shaping decisions about timing, temperature, and technique that will influence today's cheese-making success. His weather reading represents accumulated knowledge about relationships between atmospheric conditions and cheese-making outcomes that no modern manual contains. Inside the dairy, Brother Marcus adjusts his methods based on this morning's atmospheric reading. The higher humidity requires different ventilation patterns. The dropping pressure suggests slower coagulation times. The particular quality of today's light influences how he positions aging wheels for optimal mold development. Each adjustment reflects understanding earned through years of careful observation. You would approach today's cheese making with the same methods you used yesterday, following standardized procedures regardless of changing conditions. Your modern training emphasizes consistency and control rather than adaptation and responsiveness, missing the subtle atmospheric influences that traditional cheese makers learned to work with skillfully. The monastery's integration of weather. Awareness into daily food production represents wisdom about working with natural forces rather than against them, understanding environmental influences rather than eliminating them, celebrating variation rather than pursuing uniformity. This approach produces cheese with character and complexity that controlled modern methods struggle to achieve. As morning progresses toward the critical moments of curd formation and cutting, Brother Marcus continues reading atmospheric signals that guide his decision-making. The feel of air moving through the dairy, the sound of wind around the building's corners, the particular quality of light entering through stone-framed windows, all these factors influence his timing and technique in ways that connect cheese-making to the larger natural world. In the gentle morning light of the monastery dairy, surrounded by stone walls that have witnessed centuries of weather-aware cheese-making, Brother Marcus embodies knowledge about reading nature's signals that your modern life has rendered unnecessary and unfamiliar. His success depends on understanding relationships between sky and dairy, between atmospheric pressure and milk chemistry, between weather patterns and cheese aging that industrial production has eliminated through technological control. The weather speaks to those who know its language, telling stories of pressure and moisture, temperature and light, atmospheric changes that influence every aspect of traditional food production. Brother Marcus listens to this ancient conversation between earth and sky, adapting his craft to work with rather than against the natural forces that shape all life, creating cheese that carries within its flavors the signature of the weather that influenced its making, the atmospheric conditions that guided its aging, and the natural rhythms that connect human craft to the larger patterns of seasonal change and daily variation that give meaning and character to all traditional foods. In the cool depths of the monastery's aging cellars, where time moves with the patience of stone and the wisdom of centuries, Brother Marcus examines wheels of cheese that have been transforming in darkness for months, some for years, each one a testament to the ancient art of knowing when to wait and when to act. Your modern mind, trained for instant gratification and immediate results, would struggle with this fundamental aspect of traditional cheese-making, the understanding that the finest flavors emerge only through patient aging that cannot be hurried or controlled. The wheel that Brother Marcus lifts from its wooden shelf was made in the cool days of early spring, when the monastery's cows first ventured onto fresh grass after winter's confinement. 6 months of careful aging have transformed this simple combination of milk, rennet, and salt into something complex and nuanced. Yet, Brother Marcus knows with certainty that it needs another 3 months of patient waiting before reaching its peak. You would taste this cheese and find it pleasant, perhaps even excellent by modern standards, ready for consumption and enjoyment. Your palate, educated by mass-produced cheeses designed for quick turnover and immediate consumption, would miss the subtle signs that tell Brother Marcus this wheel has not yet achieved its full potential. The texture, though firm, lacks the crystalline quality that extended aging creates. The flavor, while rich, has not yet developed the deep complexity that patience alone can provide. This ability to judge a cheese's aging progress represents knowledge that cannot be taught through books or acquired through short courses. Brother Marcus learned to read the subtle signs of developing cheese through years of daily observation, tasting wheels at different stages, understanding how various factors influence the aging process, developing an internal calendar that matches cheese development to seasonal rhythms and monastery needs. The monastery's aging program extends far beyond individual wheels to encompass understanding the community's food needs months and years in advance. Brother Marcus must balance the temptation to consume good cheese today against the knowledge that exceptional cheese requires extended aging. This forward-thinking approach to food production would challenge your modern mindset, accustomed to immediate availability and instant consumption. Your modern relationship with aging focuses on expiration dates and safety margins, viewing time as an enemy that threatens food quality rather than an ally that develops complexity and character. The idea that food could improve significantly through extended aging, that patience could transform good products into exceptional ones, runs counter to your consumer culture's emphasis on freshness and rapid turnover. Brother Marcus examines another wheel, this one aging for nearly 2 years, in the cellar's coolest corner. The surface shows the beautiful bloom of beneficial molds that have colonized the cheese's exterior, creating complex flavors through their slow metabolic processes. These molds, invisible partners in the aging process, work patiently to transform proteins and fats into the compounds that create exceptional cheese. You would view these surface molds with suspicion and alarm, your modern food safety training teaching you to associate mold with spoilage and danger. The idea that beneficial molds could improve food quality through their activity would conflict with your sanitized approach to food production, missing entirely the the symbiotic relationships that traditional cheese-making cultivates and celebrates. The monastery's aging schedule follows rhythms established through generations of careful observation and planning. Spring cheeses age through summer and fall to reach perfection for winter feasts. Summer cheeses develop during autumn cooling to provide richness during Lent's austere months. Each wheel's aging timeline connects to the larger calendar of religious observance and seasonal need. This integrated approach to production planning would overwhelm your modern project management skills, accustomed as you are to shorter timelines and more predictable outcomes. The monastery's cheese-making requires understanding not only technical processes, but also community needs, religious calendar requirements, and seasonal variation that affect both production and consumption patterns. Brother Marcus turns wheels that have been aging for months, a ritual that ensures even development while allowing him to assess their progress. His hands read subtle changes in texture and weight that indicate proper moisture loss, while his nose detects the evolving aromatic compounds that signal successful aging. Each wheel tells its own story of transformation through time. You would turn cheese wheels mechanically, following written schedules rather than responding to individual needs. Your modern approach emphasizes standardization and consistency, missing the subtle variations that make traditional cheese making an art rather than merely a technical process. Each wheel's unique characteristics would be lost in your pursuit of uniform results. The monastery's record-keeping for aging cheese exists in Brother Marcus's memory and experience rather than written logs and computer databases. He knows which wheels were made during the wet spring that affected grass growth, which benefited from the particularly cool summer that slowed aging, which show promise for extended aging beyond their normal maturation period. This memory-based tracking system would terrify your modern organizational habits, dependent as you are on written records and digital databases. The idea that someone could reliably track dozens of aging wheels through memory alone, understanding their individual characteristics and aging requirements without external documentation, would seem impossibly unreliable and prone to error. Brother Marcus selects a wheel that reached perfection yesterday, though casual observation would not detect the subtle signs that indicate peak ripeness. The surface shows just the right degree of bloom, the texture yields properly to gentle pressure, the aroma carries the complex notes that indicate optimal flavor development. Today represents the perfect moment for consumption, a window that will remain open for only a few days. Your modern cheese experience rarely encounters this peak ripeness, since commercial cheese distribution requires products to survive shipping and storage while maintaining acceptable quality. The truly optimal eating window for most traditional cheeses is too brief for modern logistics, meaning you never taste cheese at its absolute peak of development. The monastery's consumption of peak cheese coordinates with religious festivals and community celebrations, creating memorable experiences that connect exceptional food to meaningful occasions. Brother Marcus times cheese ripening to coincide with Christmas feasts, Easter celebrations, and harvest festivals that give context and significance to the culmination of months of patient aging. This purposeful coordination of peak ripeness with significant events would require planning skills that your modern lifestyle rarely develops. The ability to anticipate community needs months in advance, to coordinate multiple aging wheels to reach perfection at predetermined times, to balance current consumption against future needs, represents sophisticated understanding of both cheese-making and community management. As evening approaches and Brother Marcus completes his daily rounds of the aging cellars, he carries satisfaction that comes from understanding time as an ally rather than an enemy, from working with patient processes that reward waiting, from participating in traditions that connect present work to future enjoyment through the ancient art of knowing when to wait. The monastery bells ring compline as the day's work concludes, their bronze voices marking time in rhythms that honor both divine worship and human craft. In the gathering darkness of the cellars, wheels of cheese continue their patient transformation, aging toward perfection under the care of someone who understands that the finest things in life cannot be rushed, only awaited with the wisdom that knows when patience creates treasures that no amount of hurrying could achieve. The art of knowing when to wait represents perhaps the most challenging aspect of traditional cheese making for modern minds accustomed to speed and efficiency, immediate results and instant gratification. Yet this patience, learned through years of careful observation and taught through gentle tradition, creates the foundation for excellence that connects human craft to natural rhythms, individual skill to community needs, and present work to future celebration in the timeless dance of patience that transforms simple ingredients into complex treasures through the sacred art of knowing when to wait, and wait, and wait until the perfect moment arrives. Deep beneath the monastery grounds, where natural limestone caves extend into the hillside like the earth's own cathedral, Brother Marcus enters spaces that have been shaping cheese for longer than human memory can recall. These caves breathe, with their own rhythm, inhaling cool air through hidden fissures and exhaling the gentle moisture that creates perfect conditions for aging cheese. You would see these caverns as primitive storage spaces, but they represent environmental engineering more sophisticated than most modern cheese aging facilities. The caves maintain constant temperatures throughout the year, their stone walls and deep earth insulation creating natural refrigeration that never fails, never requires maintenance, never depends on electricity or mechanical systems. In winter, when surface temperatures plummet, the caves remain steadily cool. In summer's heat, they provide refuge from temperature swings that would ruin aging cheese. This thermal stability, achieved through geological patience rather than human engineering, creates aging conditions that modern technology struggles to replicate. You would enter these caves with artificial lighting, missing entirely the subtle visual cues that Brother Marcus reads in the dim, natural illumination that filters through limestone cracks and reflects off moisture-darkened walls. His eyes, adapted to candlelight and shadow, perceive gradations of darkness that reveal air currents, humidity variations, and the subtle signs of beneficial mold growth that create perfect cheese-aging environments. The air in these caves carries its own signature, rich with the scent of aging cheese and the mineral essence of limestone that has been dissolving slowly for millennia. This unique atmosphere, created by the interaction of cheese moisture with stone surfaces, supports colonies of beneficial bacteria and molds that exist nowhere else, creating flavor profiles that cannot be duplicated in artificial aging facilities. Brother Marcus knows each section of the cave system as intimately as a musician knows their instrument, understanding which areas maintain optimal humidity for different types of cheese, which spots develop the beneficial molds that create complex flavors, which locations provide the subtle air movement that prevents harmful bacteria while encouraging beneficial ones. This spatial knowledge, earned through decades of daily observation, allows him to match specific cheeses to optimal aging environments. Your modern cheese aging relies on controlled environments designed to eliminate variation and ensure predictable results. The idea of working with natural caves that change subtly with seasons, that respond to weather patterns, that harbor unique microbial communities, would seem impossibly complex and unreliable to your safety-conscious approach to food production. The monastery's caves extend far beyond the areas used for cheese aging, connecting to underground water sources that maintain humidity and air circulation systems that regulate atmospheric conditions without human intervention. Brother Marcus understands these connections, knowing how distant water levels affect aging conditions how seasonal changes in groundwater influence cave humidity, how weather patterns alter air circulation in ways that impact cheese development. These geological relationships would overwhelm your modern understanding, accustomed as you are to mechanical systems with predictable inputs and controllable outputs. The cave system operates according to principles of natural balance and seasonal rhythm that require understanding rather than control, adaptation rather than domination, patience rather than intervention. Brother Marcus examines wheels of cheese that have been aging in these caves for years, their surfaces developed into complex ecosystems of beneficial molds and bacteria that create flavors impossible to achieve through shorter aging periods or artificial environments. These natural communities of microorganisms work slowly and patiently, transforming proteins and fats into compounds that create the deep, complex flavors that make traditional cheese extraordinary. You would view these mold-covered surfaces with alarm, your modern food safety training creating anxiety about contamination and spoilage. The idea that beneficial microorganisms could improve food quality through their metabolic activity, that natural mold communities could create desirable flavors rather than dangerous toxins, would conflict with your sanitized approach to food production. The cave's house cheese wheels, made over several years, creating a living library of aging that allows Brother Marcus to compare development patterns across different seasons and aging conditions. He can taste the influence of wet springs in cheese, made 3 years ago, detect the effects of particularly cool summers in wheels aging for 18 months, understand how various factors combine to create unique characteristics in each year's production. This longitudinal understanding of cheese development would be impossible in your modern food system, where products are consumed quickly and aging rarely extends beyond a few months. The monastery's multi-year aging program creates opportunities for learning that commercial operations cannot afford, developing knowledge that comes only through extended observation and comparison across multiple aging cycles. Brother Marcus moves deeper into the cave system, where temperature drops further and humidity increases, creating conditions suitable for the longest-aged cheeses that require years of patient development. These wheels represent the monastery's most valuable food assets, investments of time and resources that will provide exceptional nutrition and trading value when they reach maturity. The deeper caves maintain conditions so stable that aging wheels require minimal attention beyond periodic turning and surface cleaning. Brother Marcus checks these long-term wheels monthly rather than daily, understanding that their development follows slower rhythms that cannot be hurried or significantly influenced through frequent intervention. This patience with extended processes would challenge your modern need for regular feedback and measurable progress. The monastery's cave system provides natural protection against the temperature swings and humidity changes that could ruin months or years of aging investment. The limestone walls absorb and release moisture gradually, buffering against sudden changes that would shock aging cheese. The thermal mass of surrounding earth prevents rapid temperature fluctuations that would interrupt the slow bacterial processes essential for flavor development. You would struggle with this dependence on natural systems beyond your control, preferring mechanical climate control that responds to digital commands rather than geological processes. The cave aging requires trust in natural stability rather than technological reliability, understanding that some things work better when left alone rather than constantly monitored and adjusted. The beneficial mold communities that flourish in these caves represent evolutionary partnerships between cheesemakers and microorganisms developed over centuries of mutual adaptation. Brother Marcus works with these living communities rather than trying to control them, understanding that their health depends on maintaining the natural conditions that support their growth and activity. These symbiotic relationships between human craft and microbial communities would mystify your modern understanding, accustomed as you are to sterilized environments and introduced cultures rather than naturally occurring bacterial partnerships. The monastery's approach celebrates biological diversity rather than eliminating it, working with natural communities rather than replacing them with standardized commercial cultures. As Brother Marcus completes his rounds of the cave-aged cheeses, he carries satisfaction that comes from participating in aging processes that connect his work to geological time, to the patient transformation of limestone into perfect cheese aging environment, to the slow development of flavors that emerge only through natural processes that cannot be rushed or artificially duplicated. The caves continue their patient work as Brother Marcus ascends toward surface light, their limestone walls breathing moisture that maintains perfect humidity, their natural air circulation systems moving stale air out and fresh air in, their stable temperatures providing reliable protection for cheese investments that represent months and years of careful work and patient waiting. In these ancient caves that breathe with the rhythm of ages, Brother Marcus has found partnership with natural systems that create cheese aging conditions more sophisticated than modern technology, more reliable than mechanical systems, more sustainable than energy-dependent climate control. The caves teach patience with processes larger than human timescales, humility before natural systems that work better when trusted rather than controlled, and appreciation for the geological gifts that make exceptional cheese possible through partnership between human skill and Earth's own patient breathing. As winter deepens around the monastery and snow blankets the valley in peaceful silence, Brother Marcus completes another day in the eternal cycle of cheese making that has sustained his community for generations. The cheese wheels aging in the limestone caves represent more than preserved food. They embody a way of understanding time, patience, and mastery that your modern world has largely abandoned in its pursuit of efficiency and immediate results. In the golden light of evening,
Candles.
Brother Marcus reflects on the day's work with the quiet satisfaction of someone who has learned to find meaning in repetition, excellence in simplicity, and wisdom in traditions that connect him to countless generations of cheesemakers who faced the same daily challenges with the same patient devotion to craft. His hands, shaped by 40 years of handling milk and cheese, carry knowledge that no modern course could ever convey. You would struggle with this daily repetition, your modern mind seeking novelty and stimulation, rather than finding depth through sustained attention to simple processes. The monastery's approach to mastery through repetition, learning through countless iterations of the same basic tasks, would frustrate your preference for rapid skill acquisition and measurable progress toward defined goals. The cheese making that Brother Marcus practices represents a form of mastery that develops slowly through years of patient attention to subtle variations in familiar processes. Each day brings new milk with its own characteristics, different weather that affects aging conditions, seasonal changes that require modified techniques. This constant adaptation within traditional frameworks creates expertise that responds skillfully to uncertainty and variation. Your modern training emphasizes standardization and control, seeking to eliminate the variables that traditional craftsmen learned to work with skillfully. The monastery's approach celebrates variation as opportunity for learning, rather than viewing it as problem to be solved, developing judgment and intuition rather than relying on measurements and mechanical systems. Brother Marcus understands his role as temporary keeper of knowledge that flows through him to future generations rather than originating with him or belonging to him. The techniques he uses, the understanding he has developed, the skills he demonstrates, all these represent accumulated wisdom that he holds in trust for the community and the future monks who will continue the tradition after his time has passed. This sense of stewardship would challenge your modern emphasis on individual achievement and personal success. The monastery's approach to knowledge as communal property, developed through collective effort, and preserved through shared responsibility, conflicts with competitive attitudes that treat expertise as personal advantage rather than community resource. The cheese aging in the monastery's caves will outlast Brother Marcus's lifetime, representing investments in future community needs that extend beyond individual benefit. Some wheels will not reach peak ripeness for years, requiring care from monks not yet born, creating connections between present work and future sustenance that span generations of monastic life. This long-term thinking would overwhelm your modern planning horizons, accustomed as you are to shorter timelines and more immediate returns on investment. The monastery's willingness to invest labor and resources in products that may not provide benefit for years demonstrates understanding of community continuity and intergenerational responsibility that modern life rarely develops. Brother Marcus's expertise encompasses not only technical skills, but also understanding of how cheese making fits into larger patterns of monastic life, agricultural cycles, and community needs. His knowledge integrates practical craft with spiritual practice, seasonal rhythms with religious observance, individual skill with collective benefit in ways that create meaning beyond mere food production. You would approach cheese making as isolated technical skill, missing the integrated understanding that makes traditional crafts meaningful to their practitioners. The monastery's approach connects individual work to larger purposes, creating significance that sustains motivation through difficult periods and provides context that makes simple tasks feel sacred. The monastery's cheese-making tradition will continue long after Brother Marcus has joined the generations of monks buried in the hillside cemetery, their knowledge preserved not in written records but in the living practice of community members, who learn through apprenticeship and demonstration. This knowledge transmission through relationship and repetition ensures continuity that survives individual mortality. Your modern preservation of knowledge depends on external storage systems, books, videos, digital records that can be lost or become obsolete. The monastery's approach embeds knowledge in community practice, making it inseparable from the people and places that give it meaning, ensuring survival through integration with daily life rather than separation into specialized storage. Brother Marcus moves through his evening tasks with the economy of motion that comes from deep familiarity, each action precisely calibrated through years of practice, wasted effort eliminated through accumulated experience. His movements carry the grace of mastery, the efficiency of understanding, the confidence of someone who has learned to work with rather than against natural processes. This physical mastery would take you years to develop, requiring patience, with slow learning and acceptance of gradual improvement rather than dramatic breakthroughs. The monastery's approach to skill development emphasizes sustained practice and incremental refinement rather than seeking shortcuts or accelerated progress through technical innovation. The cheese that Brother Marcus produces represents quality that emerges from understanding rather than equipment, from relationship rather than technology, from patience rather than speed. These cheeses carry flavors and textures that industrial production cannot duplicate because they emerge from processes that cannot be mechanized, knowledge that cannot be codified, and patience that cannot be purchased. Your modern cheese making would rely on standardized ingredients and controlled processes, missing the subtle variations and natural partnerships that create exceptional traditional cheese. The monastery's approach works with rather than against natural forces, celebrating rather than eliminating the biological and environmental factors that give traditional foods their character and complexity. As Brother Marcus completes his evening prayers and prepares for rest, he carries the deep satisfaction of participating in work that connects him to eternal rhythms, to the patient transformation of simple ingredients into complex treasures, to the sacred task of nourishing community through the application of ancient wisdom to daily needs. The monastery settles into winter's deep quiet, its cheese wheels aging patiently in limestone caves, its traditions preserved in living practice, its knowledge flowing through generations of practitioners who understand that true mastery comes not from conquering natural processes, but from learning to dance with them in harmony. In the gentle candlelight of evening prayer, surrounded by stone walls that have witnessed centuries of the same patient work, Brother Marcus embodies the eternal rhythm of simple mastery that sustains all traditional crafts, the understanding that excellence emerges from repetition, wisdom from patience, and meaning from connection to purposes larger than individual achievement. The snow continues to fall outside, covering the monastery in peaceful silence, while inside the ancient walls, the timeless work of transformation continues. Milk becoming cheese, novices becoming masters, individual effort becoming community treasure, through the eternal rhythm that connects human skill to natural process, present work to future sustenance, and simple daily tasks to the sacred mystery of transformation that makes ordinary life extraordinary through the patient practice of ancient arts that teach us to find abundance within simplicity, mastery within repetition, and lasting satisfaction within the eternal rhythm of simple work performed with love, patience, and the accumulated wisdom of generations who understood that the finest things in life cannot be hurried but only awaited, cannot be forced but only invited, cannot be purchased but only earned, through the patient practice of skills that connect us to rhythms larger than our individual lives, deeper than our modern understanding, and more enduring than all the technological innovations that promise to make life easier but cannot teach us the satisfaction of work performed with ancient skill, patient love, and the understanding that some things are worth waiting for because they teach us the eternal rhythm of simple mastery that makes ordinary time sacred and transforms daily work into a form of prayer that sustains both body and spirit through the gentle, patient, enduring rhythm of ancient wisdom applied to eternal needs. In this peaceful monastery quiet, let yourself rest now in the knowledge that human hands can still create treasures through patience and skill, that ancient wisdom still guides those who seek it with humble hearts, and that the eternal rhythm of simple mastery continues in communities, where time moves slowly, work is sacred, and cheese ages peacefully in caves that breathe with the patient rhythm of ages, creating sustenance for generations yet to come through the timeless dance of human skill and natural grace.